Well, we've been seeing that in Jesus' upside-down kingdom, the relationships are based on mutual submission and serving one another. Even those with leadership giftings and influence are to serve with humility and not lord position and power over one another. I made the point that this is foundational to a life-giving mentoring relationship. But how does this practically apply in our lives as a mentor and being mentored? How does this influence the relationship?
Welcome to Leadership Matters with Dr. Phil. His podcast discusses matters of leadership that really matter. Phil has had the privilege of mentoring leaders and coaching ministry teams around the world for several decades, and he's really looking forward to sharing with you some of the principles that have been so helpful for others. Leadership is about serving others, not power or position. Regardless of our context, family, job, ministry, or any circle of influence, we all have the potential to be this kind of leader. A foundational leadership skill that is often overlooked is mentoring intelligence. This series is based on the materials Phil has developed over a lifetime and taught in a variety of cultural contexts. To access all of our podcasts as well as our bonus leadership resources, just click the links in the description below or go to icmcanada.org/leadershipmatters or icmcanada.org/mentoring-intelligence. So now, let's join Phil as he discusses some leadership matters.
This may be your first episode, or you may have been with us for the whole series, but either way, it's great to have you back again. This is episode 8, and we want to focus on some of the suggestions for you as a mentor. As I previously mentioned, my experience has been that there's many more people who want a mentor than are willing to be a mentor to someone. My goal is to help you see that you have what it takes to be a mentor. This will not only benefit someone else, but will also enrich your life in the process. If we really want to be a leader like Jesus called us to be, then I want to encourage all of us to consider taking the initiative, and coming alongside of someone to help them grow and develop. The best way to serve someone is forget about ourselves and help them reach their goals and purposes that God has for them. But where do we start? The first thing that has to happen, of course, is that we need to connect with someone or choose someone to mentor. But how do we do that? Well, there may be many people within our sphere that want mentoring. It's very time intensive, and so we can't mentor everyone. Choices have to be made. For example, over the years I've discovered there's a certain type of person attracted to my style of mentoring. This may be likely due to my own history and experiences, my giftings and personality and so on. It's likely going to be the same for you. You will not connect with everyone, and that's just natural. So to begin, it's helpful to identify those around us that have similar values to us and who we can imagine spending time with. There has to be a certain synergy after all, or it's going to be unlikely over the long haul that the relationship will end well. But just because we are not the best fit to mentor a particular person, it does not mean that there's not someone else that could be a fit for them. Remember, we all need a variety of mentors in our lives at any given time. But there has to be a mutual respect, and we need to do our best to find that the mentor does not feel intimidated by us in any way, which is why we need to take a servant approach rather than a spiritual giant or guru attitude. So who is in our sphere of influence that you can imagine spending time with? Who's in your sphere that you spend time with and see them grow in their leadership capacity? Some of the questions that I ask myself in this process are they self-motivated? Remember, we can't change anyone. We can only create conditions to allow someone else to grow. Also I ask, are they teachable? Are they really willing to learn and grow? Do I see indications that they're motivated to make changes in their life? And as I mentioned, can I imagine spending time with them, enjoying their company? Considering these questions can be helpful in determining who to spend our time with in this mentoring type of relationship. Then as we identify someone to mentor, the next step is actually to approach them. It'd be it would be kind of intimidating, actually a violation of the servant leader attitude to say, in my great wisdom, I would like to be your mentor. Kind of like saying, I would like to be the Holy Spirit in your life. You are so lucky to have me. Of course, we wouldn't say that in words, but sometimes our actions would be interpreted as such sometimes, wouldn't they? I find that a more helpful approach is to say something like, I see some great potential in you, and you can mention there what that may be. And then say, I was wondering if you'd be interested in spending some time with me. I think I could help you grow in this area or that area. Actually, I don't even use the word mentor, which is kind of intimidating sometimes. With this approach, I would never have, I wouldn't, using this, I've never had someone say to me, that's a dumb idea, I don't want to do that. Remember, many more want to be mentored, but there's far fewer who don't know where to start and how to begin. But you can take the initiative. You can make a huge impact in someone's life. We were living as a family in Berlin in the early 2000s. I was asked by a fellow missionary to develop some materials to help train some of his young leaders. My initial notes eventually became the Mentoring Through Intentional Relationships guide. It was right around that time that I met a young man who was in his early 20s and new to Berlin. I first met him at a Berlin ministerial meeting, and as most young men, myself included, it was clear that he had a lot more answers than questions. Well, this old wizened missionary smiled, that knowing smile of, give him a few months or a few years in the hard spiritual soil of Berlin, and that'll temper his enthusiasm. Very encouraging attitude, I know. Well, truth is, I went home after that meeting kind of glad I wouldn't maybe not run into him in the city. He's kind of a big place and he was in a different part of town. But imagine my surprise over the next few days when I began to get that unsettling feeling that God may want me to spend some time with this young man. The feeling you get when you know God wants you to do something but you don't really want to do it? Yeah, that feeling. I kind of resisted for a bit, but fortunately for me, I gave in. If not, I may have missed one of the great blessings in my life. You see, this young man's name is Karl, and some 25 years later, he's still part of our ministry network and is a good friend and colleague. So I asked Karl if he would mind meeting together at the time, and we began meeting every second Friday at a local coffee shop and began to discuss his 12 themes or chapters of the guide that I had been developing. These were topics that I felt would be helpful in discussing with a young leader, a young man, a young woman. And since those early days, as a young 20-something, since we began doing that, there's been lots of changes. Karl's gotten married, he's had 4 children, one's nearly a teenager, and he's pastoring a church plant in what was Eastern Germany. He also has traveled around the world with our teaching team since then, and I nearly missed all that by not seeing past his youth to his potential. Mentoring is about recognizing that someone has greater potential than they may currently be displaying where they're currently at, and then helping them achieve reaching that potential. Recently, I had a chat with Karl, and I think you'll find my conversation with him rather interesting. Well, thanks for taking the time, Karl, to share a few moments with our podcast listeners. It seems like it was just yesterday we were meeting for coffee every Friday, or was it every second Friday? I can't remember. But
every second Friday, yeah.
Of course, there was lots of coffee and lots of countries under the bridge since then. Of course, me buying you coffee, but hey, what do you remember about those days?
The excitement of learning something new. That was part of it. I remember I always had the train ride to our meeting. Me being a little bit spontaneous, partially I would sometimes be reading the material on the way. But,
don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
But I was the thing is I was always putting it in a context of what I was experiencing. I was a young leader at the time, I think in my late 20s, and just that expectation of learning something about myself, on how to grow, how to be the leader I want to be kind of when I grow up. Realizing,
sure.
One's own shortcomings as a leader, and realizing there's a path I need to take to get to where I want to go. And I felt on my way over when we were meeting, a lot of the topics we were talking about were about things that would help me not just be a man, but be the leader I want to be and be the leader I feel God has called me to be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of joke, my hesitancy. You heard story, we've taught about this in different parts of the world, and you've heard my stories about how I kind of joke about how my hesitancy in meeting you and mentoring you initially. But what was your perspective on that, or how did you kind of process that? Hey, I didn't think I was that old, but probably to you, here's the old guy. What's he doing? Why do you meet with
Yeah,
me?
yeah. I mean, I did think you were an old guy, but then I realized now I'm your age when you entered me or when our relationship started. So
That's what 25 years will do, eh?
Exactly. I definitely don't feel like the old guy, and yet, actually, just last week I was in a cafe and a girl served me, and you're like, "Oh, you're Pastor Karl, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." "Oh, you're my youth pastor's mentor." And I'm like, oh man, like these are the things that make you feel really old, right? Somebody else's meant. But how did I process that? How did I see it? I guess I was honored to be asked that somebody wants to invest in me, that somebody would take the time, and oh man, I hate to say this, but at the same time, in the assurance of the call of God, I felt like, thank you, Lord, that you see me and there's somebody there for me. It was a confirmation. It's a confirmation of the call that somebody is going to invest into you, and partially in humility, partially that's part of who I am, and sure. and my carnality. Yeah, of course you're investing into me. I'm a great guy. Right. That's
well, we all need that affirmation, right? There's enough things kicking us down, and I think especially in ministry, and I think that what a gift, like now you're experiencing that same gift, right, in your ministry, giving to others. And so what's your perspective now as you're able to invest in other lives around you?
I love it. It's, I think, part of for me, it's one of the greatest things in ministry to be able to invest into other people. On one hand, expecting nothing in return, but just seeing people grow, seeing people's gratitude, seeing people step into what God's called them to do. When people call back in the middle of a crisis, talk to me about what they're going through, their gratitude, their expression of gratitude, and expressing, hey, I wouldn't have made it without you. Yeah. And again, it's not about trying to put it on me that that's right, you never would have made it without me. That's not at all. It's more, I am so glad I get to be a part of your life. I get to be with you on that journey, because the people you impact, the people's lives that you change, I never would have gotten to them. Mm-hmm. It's just a different generation. But you get to do that. You get to minister to them, and I get to be a part of that through you. And I love that part of ministry, just expanding your influence, expanding, I guess, yes, the authority, the spiritual authority, but not in the sense of power, but in the sense of my reach of who God has called me to be is greater than what I expected, or the people I have just in front of me. It goes beyond that.
Yeah, and we talk about how it's very important in our ministries to have those relationships and to invest in others, and yet it's never an emergency, right? If we're not intentional, it won't happen. And in the series we've been looking at that, and I think for you and the rest of us, in the ministry coaching network around the world that we're engaged with and share these same values. I mean, we've all realized that, that if we don't do it, we may not realize it for a while, maybe 5 years, 10 years, but eventually not investing in others, then we don't leave a legacy, and we don't invest in others, and yeah. Well, I know there's a time difference here between, the West Coast here and where you are there, close to Berlin there. And so it must be getting a little late there. So I'll let you go. Thanks again for taking the time. And by the way, I think you owe me about 42 lattes. I don't know how many it was, but I lost track. But I think you probably owe me a few there.
One or two for each chapter, right?
Listeners of our Leadership Matters podcast have exclusive access to our free bonus leadership materials, which include our MQ assessments as well as his Developing Others workshop. Just click the link in the description or go to our website, icmcanada.org/mentoring-intelligence. If you would like to take a deeper dive into this topic, click on the link in the description box where you can download Phil's Mentoring Intelligence book and the workbook. In it, he discusses the key factors that affect our mentoring intelligence and then offers a practical mentoring model which leaders have been using for decades around the world. The Mentoring Through Intentional Relationship Guides are a practical model to actually help you mentor someone. They are available in several languages and over the years have been used by thousands of leaders. The content, discussion questions, and other tools are designed to assist you in mentoring a potential leader and are available at icmcanada.org/resources.
As we conclude this episode, perhaps I could also include a few other practical suggestions that have been helpful for me over the years. From the very beginning, it's important to establish the parameters of the relationships I find. Identifying what we have to offer them, the person we're mentoring, and what the mentoree is looking for. This also involves discussing expectations of the relationship. And this is important for, in any relationship, unspoken expectations, as we know, can sabotage the whole process. So as we've emphasized this type of mentoring relationship as a specific, having a specific goal, which is really personal growth and change, isn't it? And since it's rather intense, I find it helpful to initially commit for a certain time period, say 3 months or 6 months. This, of course, can be extended, but it's better to be realistic than overcommit and not be able to follow through. The initial important matter is to understand what areas the mentoree wants to grow. The challenge is to keep the relationship then fresh and not stagnate, which is why I find it helpful to regularly evaluate, if it is going to fulfill its purpose. We have to regularly evaluate the relationship. Of course, this means that the mentor has to have a clear understanding of what they have to offer. As I mentioned earlier, I've noticed that a certain type of person typically is drawn to my mentoring style. This usually has to do with what they perceive I can offer them from my life experience, my training, perhaps the type of ministry I'm involved with, and so on. Each of us have a particular unique package, to use, if I can use that word. To be an effective mentor, then we have to take some time to reflect on who we are and what we have to offer someone. The better we know ourselves, the better we're going to be able to serve someone else that we're mentoring. So we have to be honest with ourselves and the mentoree as to what we have to offer them. In a later episode, we'll look in greater depth at the various functions we can offer someone. But remember that we do not need to be an expert in every area. Just take the pressure off. We're not the only person or even, the only mentor in this person's life. As we've discussed, we don't have to be perfect. We're not the mini Holy Spirit or some spiritual giant or guru for them. Perhaps it's easier to think of ourselves as an older brother or sister, or even a peer coming alongside of them to help them grow in their personal and professional life. The reality is that we all have the potential to mentor a variety of people within our lifetime. But as with many journeys in life, the first step is often the most difficult. But I would encourage you to take the initiative. Even if you have not received leadership this way, or even if you have never had a mentor, you can mentor someone else. My hope is that this series will give you some of the tools as well as the motivation to take the initiative and see those around you with new eyes that see the potential in others, and how you can serve them by guiding them as they fulfill the dreams and goals that God has given them. Leadership and ministry in the body is a team sport, isn't it? We need each other to get there. So as we invest in others, we'll be able to one day look back with amazement at what God has been able to do through our simple efforts of coming alongside of those looking for a mentor. Actually, that's what it means to leave a legacy. The legacy is people. After all, that is all that is going to be carried forward into eternity. Everything else, titles, positions, accomplishments, all of that's going to be left behind as wood, hay, and stubble. In our next episode, I will be providing some suggestions as to how to approach someone who you consider, who you consider could be one of your mentors. And then I'll be describing a mentoring model many of those in our ministry coaching network have been using for years. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you're going to join me. But before then, I'd like to leave you a few leadership matters to consider. Can you think of someone within your sphere of influence that you could invest some time in? Considering your giftings, personality, life stage, ministry experience, what could you offer a potential mentoree? Then, using the principles from this series, are you prepared to take the initiative to mentor those that God puts in your path?
Thank you for listening to Leadership Matters. If this has been helpful, please remember to like, subscribe, and share us. Doing this will enable others to benefit from this material as well. If you would like to partner with us to provide these materials to leaders who cannot afford them, please go to icmcanada.org/donation.